Hello, listeners. Welcome back to Anode Talk, all things anodizing. Today, we're meeting another industry figure, Pinakin Patel. But before we get to our discussion with Pinakin, let's introduce the folks that you've listened to before, the smooth, velvety voice of.
I think that's supposed to be Tej, right?
Oh, is
Tej,
that
you're the one
me?
with the,
Oh,
I think you're the one with the velvety voice, not me.
that's that. Well, I looked at you, George, and I said, well, I appreciate the consensus on my voice. Everyone, this is Tej Patel. I work for Techevon. I'm based out of Chicago. Looking forward to this interesting discussion on yet another industry leader. I'll turn it over to George, who has also a velvety voice, but maybe not as good as mine.
Definitely not as good as yours. I just came back from karaoke last night, so my voice is shot right now. But thanks for the compliment, Tej. And yeah, we're excited to talk to you today, Pinakin.
Well, before we get to Pinakin, George, you have to tell us what's your go-to, because I know listeners are going to want to know what's your go-to karaoke song.
My go-to song is probably Africa by Toto.
That's a solid song. That's a good. I like that one.
There's a reason I blast out my voice though. Like I cannot hit those high notes very well.
Most people can't. It's okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Outstanding. And your host today, as well as Mark Spencer, here in beautiful Plymouth, Minnesota. Sunny skies. We know the cold wind will start blowing here shortly, but today we're taking real advantage of this great weather we're having up here. Really excited about the industry figure we're having on the podcast today. And that is Pinakin Patel. Pinakin is the founder and president of Technobond Metal Finishing Solutions. And I'm just proud to say a friend and someone that I've worked with side by side and for many years. So Pinakin, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, really? We'll ask you that at the end. We'll be okay. So Pinakin, let's start and let's go down memory lane. How long you been involved in this industry?
My first job in anodizing was 1982, and was a recession in the U.S. and my academics was in polyurethanes. Couldn't get a job in that field. Happened to find a small anodizer in Green Bay, Wisconsin, that said, want to give it a shot at anodizing. And I'll be honest, I hated electrochemistry when I was in chem classes. And here I am, my life is electrochemistry all of a sudden. But that's 1982 is when I started out with a very small anodizer in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And that time it was called Norel Coat. And their slogan was, "You start it, we finish it."
Oh.
And today that company is now Pioneer Metal Finishing. And from there on, I went to Haviland, where I was supplying to the industry. From Haviland, I joined Sandoz and ran their business for 5 or 6 years. Then I moved back to Pioneer again, and now I'm on my own supporting Techebond. So quite a few years in the business on both sides. I've been an anodizer as well as a supplier. So it gives me kind of a unique situation that I have the lingo of an anodizer and then the supply dynamics of a supplier, if you may.
That's it. You mentioned you have the lingo of anodizing. It's interesting. You've been involved in the industry so long, I didn't realize that we had a lingo, but you can talk the talk. Absolutely. What did you do before 82, Pinakin?
Before 82, I got my master's in chemical engineering from Detroit. And then, of course, before that, I did my bachelor's in India in chemical engineering. Like I said, my specialty in Detroit was polyurethanes. It had nothing to do with electrochemistry at all. But with the way the economy was, I took whatever was available, and now I'm enjoying it.
Well, you must, since you've been involved for so long. You're such an old man, Pinakin.
You got that right.
Wow. And I hear Tej is having a tough time keeping up with you. Would you agree?
Uh,
This is being recorded, just so we're all clear on that.
so yesterday, just on a side note, yesterday Tate says, "Dad, I got a friend that's looking for this one chemical. Can you find it for him?" So I looked up the chemical and I said, "Oh, Tate, this is a film former for hair conditioning." And then he tells his friend, "This is a film former." The friend goes, "Wow, you really know this stuff."
You just speaking the lingo, everybody. Just speaking the lingo. That's why we're having these podcasts, so we can all get up to speed on the right things to say.
So what you're saying, Pinakin, is Tej had a friend that wanted some hair conditioner.
Yeah,
Came to you looking for advice.
yeah.
The irony.
Yeah. I tell you. All right. So you've been involved with the process, and you've also been involved on the supply side as well.
Yes. And that gives me kind of a unique situation. Even when I was on the supply side, I was fortunate enough to be able to go to work at an anodizer. He has a problem. I come back to the lab and I work on the problem. So it gave me a unique opportunity to really understand problems and then fix them, as opposed to doing basic research, on how do you anodize better. A lot of anodizers, you tell them 12 amps per square foot, and they say, "Well, what is that?" So it's a little different perspective than you would hear from an academic person, for lack of better words. Yeah.
Right. There are times where I would think with your experience, you get involved with an issue and that's here. So have you been involved and you still see new things today as it relates to anodizing, Pinakin, that you haven't experienced?
Oh yeah. Just when I think I know everything, somebody throws a curveball. To give an example, I've got a customer that says, "I got a smut problem on my parts." And I said, "You know what? This is related to the temper. You got to really make sure you desmut properly and whatnot." And in this case, he goes, "Pinakin, I can fix this problem." "Well, how do you fix it?" He goes, "Well, I dye the parts, I dry them, and then I seal them. I have no smut." So, and I obviously, with my science, I didn't believe him, and he showed it to me. So believe me, even today, I'm still learning.
Yes, I can only imagine, because there's so many variables that have an impact on anodizing.
Oh, it's just unreal. Just when you think I know, just when I think I know enough, I get surprised by what customers are able to do.
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. Life really took you after Detroit and getting your master's. You're thinking you're going to go down into plastics, and that's just a horrible field. And you get involved with aluminum and anodizing.
Wait, is it really that bad?
It's not as good as anodizing.
Can you
Yeah,
anodize it?
sure.
I mean, if that's the gold standard, George, it's a distant second.
Fair enough.
If you can't anodize it, forget about it.
Yeah, I don't know. What's that?
If plastics were that good, you'd see buildings made of plastic extrusions, right?
Yeah,
Windows
that's
made
true.
out of plastic extrusions.
Yeah, for sure.
Good,
There
comment.
is a big shrinkage issue with plastics. In fact, I was working on that when I was in Detroit studying how to prevent plastics from shrinking by putting fillers in there. But there's only so much you can do with plastics.
Yeah,
Don't have that problem with metal.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's true.
So how did you go? How did you get involved with Technobond? I mean, you're the founder, so you started this. How'd you get from that path?
It just, well, when I worked for Pioneer in Green Bay, we was constantly challenged with trying to get a die to last long and be predictable and whatever. And so finally, the owner of Pioneer says, "Pinakin, why don't we just make our own die? Why are we going through all this exercise? If we make our own die, we know what the chemistry is. We can anticipate problems and plan accordingly." So I ended up spending 6 months just understanding what is it that makes a die work on anodizing. And I learned a lot in the process. And in so doing, I was able to really focus on the chemistry that connects these dyes to anodizing. And today, over the years, over the 8 or 10 years that I've been doing this now with Techevon, today I can tell you my success rate is pretty good. If I want to make a new molecule, I can probably hit it within a week or 10 days. My facility in India has got 4 reactions going every single day. We have 4 beakers that start out. 2 of them are how to improve an existing product, and 2 are to try something new. and we're kind of constantly learning. The focus has changed today than what it was 2 or 3 years ago. Now we're convinced that the supply of raw materials to make dyes is going to shrink, and so we have to focus on products that are more readily available, that are less toxic to make on the raw material side of it. So now we are focusing on how we can make dyes around products that are easily available. So the reliability of dyes is much better in the industry, particularly in our business, because we represent 1/100th or 1/1000th of the capacity of the dye industry. So none of the players are interested in working on anodizing dyes. That's just not of interest to them because the volume is not there to support it. So in that regard, it's kind of been a fun thing for me because I'm able to actually develop stuff and market it as it relates to anodizing.
So that's a really interesting point that you bring up, actually, like the whole environmental cost of like making these dyes. Like, I mean, I guess my question right now is how much do customers care about that?
I mean, right now they don't care, but I mean, you're seeing it. There's a supply problem. There's no doubt
Oh yeah.
availability is becoming an issue.
Oh yeah.
Just at Techevon right now, we have always have 2 years worth of stock and 6 months of stock in the US. And even then we are worried that this could be a problem. And it's largely because when Sandoz first got into the business, or the Western world was controlling this business, they were fully back integrated. They made the raw materials to make the dyes. So we had a lot of control over the product. As the business moved to China, there was a lot of people they specialized in making raw materials, others specialized in making the dye. So the business fragmented to some degree. And so the suppliers were relying on the raw material people, and the raw materials actually are more toxic than the dye. The dye is bad enough, but the toxicity level of the raw materials is 100 times worse.
Yeah.
So those people got impacted sooner than the dye people did. And so they started either discontinuing products or shutting down operations. And so today, a raw material that I could purchase for one of my dyes, if I had 10 sources today, I'm lucky to get 2 or 3 of them to make it for me even. So it's a real challenge. And China is the problem with the Chinese market is that, or the Chinese manufacturers, that the steps they take are very draconian. If something goes wrong, they shut down the thing. It's not like we'll give you 6 months to phase out. None of that. It's gone.
Yep.
So it's a little bit of a challenge in that regard.
Yeah, I've definitely heard those stories too.
Oh, it's right now, anthraquinone is a big problem. They had a quinoline plant that blew up and killed 80 people. And so all of a sudden, supply of quinolone is 50% of the market is gone. And everything you can see, all anthraquinone dyes have gone up quadruple, and it's not available anymore.
Yeah, like that. Like Mark, did you see that? I feel like that was in the news, right? Like the whole plant blowing up and everything. Yeah.
Yes. And it was because of the rain, heavy rains over there. Is that what you're talking about?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's recent, and then they've had other issues prior to this. There's always something that's kind of disrupting the supply chain over there, and when that happens, it creates ripples through the.
A common chemical used for making good dyes is picramic acid. You get a little bit of moisture in picramic, and it blows up. So I mean, there's some really interesting chemicals when you could talk about dyes.
Yeah, no kidding.
So Pinakin, would you say that's your biggest challenge?
Oh,
in
absolutely.
Business today?
Oh, absolutely. My biggest challenge right now, and now we are seeing it on things like sulfuric acid, which just
No way.
Yeah, there's a shortage of sulfuric acid right now. It's unreal what's going on in the market right now.
I mean, how are we supposed to anodize without sulfuric acid?
You got that right. But so yeah, our biggest concern right now, Mark, is on the supply side, is the raw material availability. Techevon is fully back integrating. We're actually going to make our raw materials. We do that for 2 or 3 of our products anyways right now. So we're going to fully back integrate into the product area, because that's the only way we can maintain the supply side of it, at least.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it's going to be a problem going forward too.
So it sounds like there's a lot on your plate, right? We got supply issues, development. It sounds like you're quite a busy young man.
That's right.
Okay, there we go. I wanted to acknowledge that so Tej can appreciate the fact that you're carrying the torch.
Oh yeah.
So Pinakin, when you're not developing or thinking, and I imagine that's not too often, but what do you do to unwind?
Grandkids. I've got some grandkids that I love. And it's so much fun to bring them to my facility here and show them a simple reaction, acid-based titration, make clear water pink, and they enjoy it. And I tell you, so much fun. But I enjoy time with the kids, the family. That's probably the next best thing I do after my Techevon activities.
Oh, that's really nice.
That is, and you can hear that in your voice.
He said grandkids. He didn't say son.
Who was that, George?
I don't know. It sounds like wind to me.
Yeah.
Some interference here with the podcast, I think.
It's Tej. It's all about Tej. Forgot all about that. And Tej is the only son, right? So
Tej is the only son. Yep.
Yeah, he's the baby boy, so it's all about him. So the grandchildren come into play. Yeah. All right. So now, are you going to build that volcano and out of paper mache and then put vinegar and baking soda in there, Pinakin? You're going to
the vinegar and baking soda is already done, but I'm struggling with the volcano with the potassium or the sodium dichromate. I've got to work. I've got to negotiate that with my son. That is a real volcano.
Yeah, we don't want to explicitly say we're violating OSHA requirements here in the Techevon Chicago office. Bringing children in and making sodium dichromate bombs.
Oh wow. Okay.
It's on my to-do list, though. It's on my to-do list.
Gotcha. When you're not in Chicago, Googling over the grandchildren, what else? What about South Carolina? What are you doing down there to, unwind?
I used to play a fair amount of golf, and that's kind of gone all of a sudden because I'm enjoying what I'm doing for one. Right. Spending a lot of Saturdays at work. What I find is that when I'm working on a Saturday, when I don't do any kind of real research or whatever, Saturdays work out good because there's nobody bothering me, no phone calls in between. And so I spent quite a few Saturdays at Techevon, but I'm now picking up gardening. I'm going to have an oriental garden. I'm going to have every Japanese maple that is out there probably in my yard.
Ooh, that sounds nice.
What's that tree that you have to trim? God, I'm drawing.
Bonsai.
Bonsai. You gonna have a couple of those, Pinakin?
I'm still not ready for that, but I got a little ways to go. I'm still kind of learning this.
Okay. So, all right. Now you have a couple Japanese maple, and now you're.
I got about 8 or 10 of them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the wrinkle leaf, and I can talk about all of them. Yeah.
But okay. Have you got names for them?
I got the names of the Japanese names, but I got to figure out I've got to get some U.S. names.
I got you.
Okay.
All right. So cool. That's really neat that you can get out there and get in the dirt because people do that as well. And is that a co-ed event or is that just you?
Oh, it's just me.
Oh.
Yeah, my wife helps me in fall and spring, but in the summer, no. She just gives me the beer.
Okay.
With the lime.
Nice.
So I would imagine you traveled the world quite a bit, right?
Yes.
You have a story, a travel story you could share with us? Because those are always good.
I got to tell you this one. I was at a plant in...
Hold on. Let us get our head around that. We got to set the stage.
I was visiting a plant in Spain, an anodizing plant. And so I was going to go to Spain and then go on to India. And so I told my mother that, look, I'm going to Spain, then I'm going to go to India, and I'll see you so-and-so day. She said, in Spain, they have the best, it's saffron. They have the best saffron in Spain. And saffron is a big deal in India. They use it for a lot of food, when they make things for God or whatever, the saffron's a big deal. Can you get some saffron for me? I said, okay, no problem. Now, I was going to be at a plant troubleshooting and whatnot. So it was not like I could go out and shop for saffron. So I told the guy at the plant, look, I need some saffron, please. Can you have that? So I don't have to go shop for it. He said, how much do you want? I said, get me a kilo or so. That'll be enough. So when I go to the place, the guy has no saffron for me. I said, well, geez, did you get my saffron? He said, sir, I think I've got a shop ready for you. If you want a kilo, I can get it for you. I said, well, what do you mean? I didn't realize a kilo was like 5 drums of it. Saffron is so light.
Oh, wow.
And it's going to be expensive too.
Yeah, it's going to be very expensive. Yeah, but it's kind of made a fool of myself though. But
I'd like to share one with you, Pinakin. This involved you and I, and this was a long, long time ago.
Okay.
So we're traveling from White Plains, New York, down to Newark, and we're on a little puddle jumper. And it was a horrible lightning and thunderstorm. And it was just crashing. The lightning was happening all around us. And we were in the back of the plane. And you know, when you're in the back of a prop plane, you're just going to get thrown right, left, up, and down. And I'm doing everything I can. And you're sitting across the aisle from me, Pinakin, and I'm doing everything I can to keep my hands around the armrest and keep it all together. And all you want to do is talk. And you're just ba 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 ba. I'll never forget that. It was just like it was like, okay, Pinakin, I got you. It was a horrible flight, but I do appreciate you being there and calming me down. Way to be steadfast. Well, I hope that comes across okay. It was fun if you were there. Anyway. So Pinakin, you've been involved with the AAC, correct?
Yes, since
Okay.
the inception.
Since the inception. Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
It I was a brainchild of some of the founders, some of the original companies that wanted to do it. They wanted to set up something like a Qualinod organization,
Mm-hmm.
and it is what it is today from that start at least.
What do you think the benefit of AAC is to job shops and those involved in the anodized industry?
Well, I think this is my opinion. It doesn't mean I'm right, but I believe we as an industry don't promote anodizing. We may have our challenges as it is competition and whatnot, but as a group, we don't try to really attack our competing finishes like paints. And part of the initial goal at AAC was to try to confront that or deal with that. I think we've somehow lost that for whatever reason. But I'm passionate about anodizing. When somebody talks to me about paints and talks about that, I'm able to show them and talk to them and tell them why anodizing is a better alternative. And so to me, I think what we can do for anodizing is to really promote that there are some things about anodizing that are irreplaceable. Nothing out there can do that. Filiform corrosion is one example. The appearance, the feel. Just to give you a perspective, metal phones came not because they liked anodizing, because Motorola was so fed up of dealing with these plastic injection molders. There's so many of them, everybody would give them the runaround. So they said, you know what, I'm fed up of them. Let's just go to a metal phone. They didn't realize that to take a piece of aluminum and make a complicated shape out of it is not like injection molding. It's a lot involved in that. But by the time they were so much into the process that they could not bail out of it. But their goal was to get, once they got the first, the V60 or whatever phone out, they were going to get out of that. It was too complicated, too difficult on the supply chain side. But what happened was, once they put it into the market, the industry really took it on. It feels good, especially in Asia. It was a big seller. And so the main reason metal phones are there today is because of anodizing. I can tell you one thing, Apple is not stupid to have their keyboards made out of anodized aluminum. There is no plastic that will replace it in terms of quality, feel, appearance. And that's coming to the US. I've got a few customers right now that are making aluminum look like that Apple iPad, and the feel of that, for a surface that is blasted, that feels really good. And so that's what I think we can sell as an industry. We can really show that anodizing has such a niche that nothing can replace. I don't know that as an industry we do that very well.
Good point. The promotion of anodizing, and that's hopefully that's some of the things we can do here with our podcast as well. And what would you think about future podcasts, Pinakin, about and to promote it? What were some of the things you mentioned? Filiform.
I mean, obviously we should talk about it. I think one of the challenges with anodizing as it relates to paints, for instance, is there's a general perception out there that people cannot anodize with the level of consistency, color consistency as a paint, or with the diversity of colors as a paint. And that's kind of a little bit misrepresenting what anodizing really can do. I mean, you'll always have some bad apples. I can find some bad paint jobs too. But I think the paints have done a very good job communicating that to the industry, whereas we've not done a very good job. Automotive trim is probably a very, very good example. the ABCD pillars of luxury cars were always anodized. Mercedes was the only company that did not walk away from that commitment. BMW, Jaguar, everybody went away from it, and they all are back to anodizing again because they cannot get the paints are. Just think about it. You open the door, the first thing you see is the A pillar, and if you don't feel good about it, the value perception is not there. Mercedes, till they figured out the problem with high alkaline resistance, Mercedes kept on replacing parts on warranty, but they never went to a painted trim. And now you can see everybody's coming back to that. So this is the example of how an anodized finish, and incidentally, the anodizing is cheaper than paint in terms of cost. And yet we were not able to sell it as an industry.
It's also more environmentally friendly.
That's exactly more right. I've never understood why they don't anodize the shell of a plane because weight. I mean, there's a lot of weight on those planes.
Oh yeah.
From the paint. Anodizing would be a much better solution for that. But people have never thought about it for whatever reason.
So let's come back to the AAC for a moment. The annual conference is coming up in September 14th to the 16th to be exact. What do you look forward to, Pinakin? When you go there, what are you looking to do? What's the benefit for you to attend the annual conference?
Selfishly, the benefit is to promote Techevon to the industry in general. But I think the bigger purpose is, particularly in this one, where you're going to have the extruders as well as the anodizers in one conference. I'm going to try to make an effort to try to promote anodizing, show what anodizing can do that they're probably not seen as it relates to consistency, color consistency, and whatnot. We're not afraid to talk about LABs to customers, and some of the things we're going to talk about to customers this time, at least.
Mm-hmm.
We've got customers that live and die by that LAB right now, as it relates to product quality, assessing whether something is good or not. The other thing we're going to promote is light fastness. I think the no-dig coating done properly is absolutely much more durable than anything out there. And so those are the areas we're going to talk about at this show, particularly because it's a mixed show. We have got extruders in there too, which I'd like to get we'd like to get their attention.
Absolutely. It would be a good cross mix, and hopefully we can get some new members from this as well when they hear this passion of promoting anodizing and the different. So you also threw out a couple of new podcasts, LAB and light fastness, and that's outstanding.
I was talking to Tej the other day. We're going to try to put together some kind of a testing program that we can accelerate the light fastness and compare paints versus anodizing not this 2,000 or 3,000 hour thing. We're talking about doing something in 24 or 48 hours
to
project something that we think is very representative, at least. But we're working on that right now. We've got 2 or 3 machines that we've got some absolutely fantastic correlation between anodizing, or at least on anodized finishes, between our machine and actual xenon and QUV machines. We've got some solid data. And there's also data being developed with actual Florida exposure with that. So if we can validate what we are doing, then we have a really good test that we can go after and show how paints perform compared to anodizing. Because I think you'll find that when you do the full test, when you do like a crosshatch and whatnot, the paints are not quite as good as claimed.
Yeah. And if those tests work out, and it sounds like they are, that's going to be a huge difference. Just being able to test those that much faster.
Right. The whole point is you don't want to wait 1,500 hours to find out you got a bad product in the market.
Yeah.
And so
exactly.
And so that's the kind of stuff we're really looking at. We already got 2 or 3 customers that are using it all the time, very successfully. So it's kind of in a beta test, if you may.
That is great. Cannot wait to see that make its way out into the greater industry.
Pinakin, next year, 40 years in the anodizing industry. Wow. Did you ever think you'd be in it this long?
No, I never thought so. When I got my first job, I said, oh my God, what am I doing?
And so that brings up our next question. For someone that's just starting out in this industry, what nugget would you give them?
I try to tell we've got some people that work for us that are young engineers, and I try to explain to them that, one of the things about anodizing is that you don't wear suits, You don't have a fancy office.
Hmm.
Any which way you look at it, you put a part in the etch tank and you are going to get dirty. You can wear all the gloves you want, you can wear all the lab coats you want, but you're in a filthy business. This is the way it is. And, but having said that, because of that same reason, there's very few talented people or big companies interested in this business. So if you can do something in this business area, you can be a whale in a swimming pool as opposed to a fish in the ocean, right? And so I've been trying to tell my people and some of the people that work for us do see it that way. I really think this industry has got so much potential, so much opportunity. As a technology has got opportunity for people that want to join in there, because there's not too many people chasing this. Anodizing is not a particularly interesting field for people are not seeking to be anodizers, I can tell you that. And if we can make them do that, there's a great opportunity in this business, I think.
Outstanding.
Agreed.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, I don't know, George can say, but I can tell you one thing right now. Anodizing as an industry is growing faster than I've ever seen in my 40 years. I've never seen so many plants go up and so much activity at our customers that I've seen in the last 2 years at least. I've never seen it in 40 years.
Oh yeah, people have been swamped the past couple of years.
Pinakin, what would you tell a business owner? Because job shop anodizers make up this industry, right? Extruders, they do a lot of pounds, that's for sure. But at the end of the day, a lot of the job shop guys, whether they're using hoist or lifting the racks in and out by hand, what would you tell a business owner today about share some experience?
Well, one of the things I like to tell a lot of our customers is um, there's always a challenge. The people that machine aluminum think they can do a better job than anodizing. Anodizers can anodize, right? And I always challenge them. I always tell a machine shop that we can anodize more precisely than you can ever machine. There's no way that you can machine with the accuracy that one can anodize. So when customers agree to any process specifications, they should explain to their supplier that we always anodize to a thickness, not to a dimension. Because if the incoming material is not in dimension, anodizer can make it potentially in dimension, but that's not the role, because you'd be checking every part coming in. So one of the mistakes that a lot of anodizers make is they commit to saying, oh yeah, we can do all this. We can do all these parts with the tolerance and all that without understanding how tolerances work. And so you really need to make your customer aware that anodizers can anodize to a thickness, not to a dimension normally. If you have to anodize to a dimension, it's a whole different level of managing the process for which you should get paid.
Yep. So Pinakin, we're coming to the end of our Meet the Industry figure. Anything else you'd like to add?
All I can tell is that people that are anodizing, I think to me, the industry is in a green spot right now. Unless something dramatic happens or a new technology comes up, I think the future looks very good at this point. We're certainly excited. And I think there's more and more products being anodized. With the electric car coming in, there's going to be more and more need for aluminum in those components. With the electric cars, there's a lot more electronics. Electronics need aluminum and anodizing. Anodizing has got a tremendous emissivity properties that very few coatings, if any, can match. So I think the future is great for anodizing, and I think our anodizers should be optimistic and looking forward to growing their business.
That's outstanding. Pinakin, we can't thank you enough for joining us today on our podcast, and we're certainly looking forward to speaking to you again on our next podcast, in which we're going to talk about organic dyeing, and that's an exciting topic.
All
so
right.
With that, I'm sorry.
No, that's great. Looking forward to it. Anything I can do to help the industry, we're there.
We want to thank everyone for listening to this edition of Ano Talk.
All
things anodizing.